The clove hitch. For this we pass the working end around the pole, so that's a turn. The working end comes under the standing part. Then we pass it around again, and you tuck the working end under itself and pull tight. This is the clove hitch. If you use it as a mooring knot, it should only be temporary, and you have to supervise it because it can actually slip if you put sufficient tension under it. If you want a more permanent solution, then you use a round turn with 2 half hitches. If the end of the pole is available, such as a mooring post, then you can form the knot first by making 2 identical crossing turns. 1, 2, like that, and just slip it over the top of the post. There we go. The constrictor knot. The constrictor knot is made in the same way as the clove hitch. So you pass the rope round, the working end goes under the standing part, it goes round one more time, over the standing part, and then tucks under itself. That would make the clove hitch. But now the difference is you tuck it under the lower crossing turn, like that. And that's the constrictor knot. This holds much better than a clove hitch, but it's actually very difficult to undo once it's been placed under strain, and you may have to cut it. So don't use it to moor a boat. The round turn and 2 half hitches. This knot can be used to secure a rope to a mooring post or a ring, and can easily be undone even after being under a strain. You pass the rope round twice to make a round turn. Then we form a half hitch. And then another half hitch. The round turn takes the strain, and the 2 half hitches secure the rope. I'll do a round turn and 2 half hitches on a ring. Here we are, there's the working end, goes through the ring once, twice, and there's the round turn. And we pass the rope round the back and form a half hitch. Quite tight, and form one more half hitch. And there it is, the round turn and 2 half hitches. The round turn takes the strain, and the 2 half hitches keep the rope secure. Fisherman's bend. This is also known as the anchor bend, and it's actually a hitch, so that's confusing. But anyway, it's the same essentially as a round turn and 2 half hitches, but with a change, a difference. You take the working end through twice, as before, to form a round turn. Then around the back, but now instead of forming a half hitch, like you did with the round turn and 2 half hitches, you actually pass it through the round turn. And then finally you form a half hitch. Like that. And there's the fisherman's bend, also known as anchor bend. The cow hitch. This knot was devised to be passed through the ring in a cow's nose, but it's actually fairly insecure. There are 2 working ends, and equal strain has to be placed on both. You form a bight at the midpoint of the rope and pass it through the ring. And then you take the working ends and put them through the bight and pull. And there's the cow hitch. The Pedigree Cow Hitch is used instead of a cow hitch if only one working end is to have a strain. You form the cow hitch as before, like that, but here's the working end that isn't going to be subject to strain, and we pass it through the cow hitch and then pull tight. and that's the Pedigree Cow Hitch. Cow hitch with toggle. If you want to use a cow hitch but you don't have access to the working parts, so in other words you've only got access to the middle of the rope, you use a cow hitch with toggle. You go to form the cow hitch as normal, then we use a toggle, I'm using a pencil here, and thread that through. And there it is, the cow hitch with toggle. That's the rope coming undone. Now unfortunately all it takes is a bit of a shake and for the toggle to fall out, and your cow will run away. So instead of using a toggle, you form a loop of rope in there instead. A sheepshank. This knot shortens a piece of rope without cutting it. It can also be used to take the strain off a weak or frayed part of rope. You take 3 identical crossing turns. 1, 2, 3. And then you grab the middle one through the ends. And it's as simple as that. If you are using it to take the strain off a weak or frayed part of rope, the frayed part needs to be on the middle loop. The Marlinespike Hitch. This knot is used to add a temporary handle to a piece of rope so it can be pulled without the rope cutting into your hands. The handle can be any tool, such as a metal screwdriver or a spanner. We'll use a pencil. You lay the tool on the rope like this and twist it around the back, holding onto the loop with the other hand, and then you tuck it like that. Pull it tight, and now you have a handle and the rope won't cut into your hands. To release it, you just pull the tool out. The Highwayman's hitch. As the name suggests, this knot was often used to tether horses and release them quickly. Strain has to be applied to the standing part. What we do is you form a bite, pass it round the back, put your hand through and grab the standing part and pull that. And then you pull your hand through that loop and grab the working part, and then time by pulling on the standing part. And that's it. The horse can't get away, and to release it quickly you pull on the working end and it just comes off. The Palomar Knot. This is a knot to tie a fishing line to a hook. Instead of a hook, I'll be using a rather large representation of a hook, and instead of fishing line I use some string so that you can see what I'm doing. For the Palomar Knot, you form a bite in the rope, in the line, pass it through the eye of the hook and make a large overhand knot. And then, with the end of the bite, you take pass the entire hook through it, and then you just have to shape the knot. You may have to loosen the knot again to get it to work, but it's a fairly nice, simple, straightforward knot that would take a fair bit of strain. That's the Palomar Knot. Square lashing. This is the knot that Robinson Crusoe types use to make tent structure out of tree branches. It's used to tie the poles at right angles. We attach the rope to the poles using a clove hitch. There. Then we pass the rope round the back of the second pole in front of the first, and then round the back again like that. and pull tight, and the clove hitch slips to the side there. Now we're going to repeat that several times. We'll repeat it until there are 4 strands on the top. So there's 1, there's 2, and we keep pulling it tight all the time. So there, we have 4 strands on the top, 5 on the bottom, and we finish off making the 6 on the bottom there like that. The rope goes round the back of the second pole, but then comes back down in front. Now it goes round the back of the first pole, and then over the top of the second, and then round again, round the front one more time, holding it tight with my thumb there, and now we finish off with 2 clove hitches. So there's 1, pull it tight, and then form another one. Prusik knot. The Prusik knot is designed for climbers, and it attaches a strop, which is a ring of rope, also known as a sling, to the main rope. Ideally, the rope used for the strop should have a smaller diameter than the main rope. A set of Prusik knots can be used as a handhold or foothold for climbing a rope. I formed a strop using a single length of rope tied into a circle. Hold a loop of the strop across the main rope, like this, and then you tuck the knot through once, twice, 3 times. Make sure it's all nice and neat, and then pull tight. And there we have it, the Prusik knot. The Italian hitch. This knot is popularly used for abseiling because it allows the user to control the rate of descent. We bring the working end up through a ring. Take it round the back and then back through the ring, like that. And that's the Italian hitch. Now the end, what's the working end? That's the breaking rope. So you'd be coming down on the other rope, and then you pull on the breaking rope to break. Rolling hitch. This knot is used to tie a rope to a pole or to take the strain off another rope. Here I'll tie it to a pole. Do a turn there, and then we take the working end over to form another turn. And we keep the standing part off to the side here like that. So there we are, I've got 2 turns. And we're locking the first turn in place there. And then we form a half hitch there, and it's done. Now the strain can only be applied in that direction, and it works pretty well. You try and pull it the other direction, it just falls apart, just slides. The rolling hitch can also be used to take the strain off another piece of rope. So let's say this piece of rope here, we need to get access to one end which has already been tied somewhere else. But in order to untie this end down here somewhere, we need to take strain off the rope. So we do another rolling hitch. So I tie it round one strand like that, round again, and then a third time, holding them in place like that. And then finally we do a half hitch there, and pull it tight. And now you can pull on this end, take the strain off the rope, and you get access to take the strain off this piece of rope here. Shear lashing is also used by Robinson Crusoe types to bind two poles together. We begin by tying a clove hitch around the poles. Pull that tight and leave the loose end off to the right there. And what we do now is we start binding the poles with the rope, and we trap this little loose end in there. Keep it tight all the time, and we keep going until the length of this is about twice, it's about that. Okay, now we're ready to finish off. What we'll do now is pass the rope between the poles, and if you've done it tightly, this is actually very difficult. Then back up between the poles, pull it tight, one more time, and then this final time I'm going to tie a half hitch. So you can see I've just passed it through there, and the working end tucked under there, and we have a half hitch. Pull it tight, and then do one more. Half hitch. Pull it tight. And there's your square lashing, and you can trim the end. If you do this slightly loosely, I've done it slightly loosely, then you can form an A-frame as the one end of a tent that way. So that's shear lashing.